Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ascension School. I am JJ, and today we will be talking about soul evolution as it relates to enlightenment, but hopefully in terminology that is very straightforward and easy to understand. Welcome, my friends. We are here to learn again at Ascension School, all of us in this same boat going through Ascension. I feel like most of what we learn is just remembering, but nonetheless, it's really fun to be able to present some of these concepts to you and have you sift through them, decide what resonates with you, and move forward in this really amazing time that we're living in. I do want to drop in really quickly and just mention a couple of things before we head into the topic at hand. First of all, we have our amazing soul gatherings coming up soon. There are soul gatherings pretty much every Sunday, and then once a month on Saturdays, I also have a Galactic Federation gathering. All of those are posted on my website, Activations with JJ. If you just click on gatherings, you can find those really easily, or you can go to the description of this podcast episode and you'll find the link right there. I made it really, really easy for you. Some of the gatherings that we have coming up include gatherings with fairies and elementals. We also do a gathering with the Arcturians, another one with the Pleiadians, and it's really fun because they're two different energies, and to explore their different energies, how they relate to us, they do different kinds of activations. It's just so amazing. And then, of course, we do have our once a month Galactic Federation gathering where we connect with the Galactic Federation and we offer ourselves to help do things for the collective. Not only that, but we also learn things for ourselves individually. I think a lot of people are beginning to connect with different star races, knowing that they also have a role in this big picture of ascension. They have a role somehow. And I think that as you connect with the Galactic Federation or the Arcturians or Pleiadians, that you begin to see that role. You begin to have synchronicities, and it's just so amazing, especially if people who are a little bit shy, maybe haven't done this much. I promise you the Soul Family gatherings are a great way to go. We do them via Zoom, and you're actually able to come in with or without camera. There's no requirement to even say anything in the gathering. You can just participate and hold space. And again, it's incredible. So I really encourage you to click on that link, take the leap, go ahead and join us. You need a place to be able to relate to other people going through these things. And obviously in our normal lives, we can't just go up to people and talk about aliens. So this is one way for you to feel validated, to feel like you're not that crazy, and really just associate with like-minded people. So I would love to see you there. Secondly, this is kind of I guess it's not a funny request, but to me, I don't normally do this, but I would love to have you offer a small energy exchange by subscribing to the channel. Whether or not this is the first time you've listened or you've listened before, I would love it if you could just click on that little subscribe button. You'll get alerts every time I do post different videos, and you'll get all of the information that we have regarding the different shorts that I do. You'll see those pop up. I have all kinds of things happening every single week for this channel. If you're listening on a podcast and you're like, what? I didn't know there was a YouTube channel. Would you mind hopping over to the YouTube channel and following me there? Mainly because you will also find guided meditations and activations that I do not post on the podcast. So you're going to see lots of content that I don't put on the podcast on the YouTube channel. It'll be like a treasure trove for you. It'll be amazing. So those are just my two asks before we head into the topic today. And that is a continuation of last week's topic. I really didn't think I was going to keep going with this, but it's such a deep topic. Soul evolution. As you know, we talked about that last week. We talked a little bit about the difference between densities and dimensions, as well as the process of soul evolution and what it is. Most of the information I'm getting right now for Ascension School, I'm focusing on a book called Soul Integration. Well, I focused on two, but right now I'm focusing on a book called Soul Integration by Sal Rachele. And a link to the book is in the show notes. So make sure if you're interested in reading it, you click on that. I find the book really informational has lots and lots of channeled content. And you can find out more about the author and how he channeled the content if you look up the book. I'm not going to kind of go into that today. But I do want to pop into a portion of the book where it's a chapter about enlightenment. And I want to remind you that enlightenment is pretty much interchangeable with the word soul evolution because they're almost one and the same. Lots of mystics and spiritual traditions talk about enlightenment. It's obviously not anything new. Some people use the word ascension. I think there's lots of ways to approach it, lots of different vocabulary that we can use. But the way that it's referred to in this book is enlightenment and also soul evolution. So, soul evolution, there are different cycles or stages of soul evolution as defined in this book. Obviously, this is kind of a linear format, and I've talked about this a whole bunch. Technically, linear thinking is very much confined to our world and our brains. But in Ascension School, we still do some linear thinking because I feel like it's a way for us to intake information without being super overwhelmed, since that's how our brains are wired for now. We're all moving into multidimensionality. We're moving into less linear time, less linear thinking. But as we're transitioning, we do address certain things in a linear way. So, speaking of the stages of soul evolution, I just want to run through those really quickly. It was really fun because I was able to present this information in my latest soul integration group. I actually am now doing the soul integration in a blended process of group gatherings and then individual sessions. I start a new one on February 1st. I've told you guys in a message earlier this week that February 1st for me is like the beginning of the new year. For some reason, energetically, I feel like January is just kind of an in-between for me, and the real beginning of 2022 is going to be February 1st for me. Actually, I should probably say February 2nd since all those twos are a really cool thing. But if you're interested in joining the cohort, the group sessions as well as the individual sessions, the process takes just 1 month. I have lots of different payment plans. If the thought of doing this big energy exchange commitment is overwhelming to you, take a look at the website, see if some of those plans might work for you. I've really tried to cater it to everybody's budget. So I want to pop in and say that really quickly. But as I mentioned, I'm already running a cohort, and I did teach them some of this information as we kicked off last week. And so the cycles are this. First, many of you know this, but first it's basically the soul is asleep. You're dreaming that it's a separate self, all alone in a hostile universe, and it becomes identified with material things and pursuits. This is very familiar to so many of us who talk about being awake or being in the matrix and then waking up and realizing you are in a matrix. That's your kind of second stage. The waking up, though, is oftentimes not just a transition from one thing to another. I feel like there's really a calibration going on. So you kind of have these awakening moments. People will call those like a Kundalini awakening. In the book, he talks about it as a Satori experience, which is a term used in Japanese Buddhism to mean enlightenment. And basically what it is you just have this sudden shift away from materiality. Sometimes this happens with a really bad thing in your life. I know many of you have had, over the last few years, have had some very drastic changes with relationships, with job circumstances, with moves, even illness or accidents. All of those things can bring you to this state or this experience of Satori, which again is not necessarily a permanent thing, but it's kind of snaps you out of things. Now, I do want to say that after having this kind of sudden enlightenment experience, or maybe a couple, people oftentimes think, I've arrived, I've gotten here. But what happens is the enlightenment seems to fade. And in the book, he says it's fading and it is replaced with what is called a consolidation phase. I feel like a lot of you are in that phase. If this resonates with you, you'll know what I'm talking about. The book says, this is where all the old patterns of emotion, thought, and behavior tend to return, and the young seeker may get discouraged and think he or she has gone backward. However, the door never closes once it has been opened, And very soon, the young soul makes a commitment to grow and evolve. The author then talks about how different ways to do this are just through regular therapy or a disciplined spiritual practice, having a mentor. One of the ways that I have felt I've been able to help people in this particular stage lately, it's a theme that's been coming up a lot in my one-on-one sessions, is deprogramming. I'm actually planning on talking a little bit about that next week in my Ascension message, but deprogramming so much of the underlying subconscious cultural expectations that are happening in our human bodies still. They're still residing there. And so bringing attention to those, bringing them to light, that is all part of this third consolidation stage after you kind of embark on your spiritual path. So again, as he says, don't get discouraged if this is where you're at. And if this is where you're at and this resonates with you, please feel free to reach out. I would be honored to help you through some of this undoing. It's kind of reprogramming is what I call it, because you're kind of undoing old programming and then reprogramming. I also have so many different activations that you can listen to. I did a recent one, there was deprogramming there. This is the quick solar plexus activation I did in January 2022. So if you haven't listened to that, that one is specifically for deprogramming disempowerment. So it's removing the disempowerment programming we've had, the subservience that we've been programmed with in a very hierarchical society. That's just one example of ways that you can do some of this deprogramming. But moving on, what happens is after you've kind of gone through this period of what he calls purification and cleansing of the old self, I call it also shadow work, the higher self becomes more and more apparent. And the book goes on to say, the soul now strives to experience integration of the various levels and dimensions of the self. Now, I have to tell you, I developed my soul integration, which is obviously not a new term. I've lots of different spiritual people bring up integration. But this just validated me so much because I felt like there's so many people out there right on the cusp. They're kind of done with the consolidation phase. They've done all the shadow work and they're like, I know there's something new coming. I know there's something new coming. And I really strongly feel that soul integration is what it is. That being said, I just want to remind you again to reach out if you feel like you're ready for that. I do have kind of a screening process because if you jump the gun, the soul integration just isn't as effective and isn't as useful. But if you feel like you've kind of hit that consolidation phase and what I'm saying resonates with you, I would absolutely love to have you join us for one of the monthly cohorts. They happen every month. There's going to be one in February, one in March, and ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. Now, I had a person reach out to me after I posted a reel that detailed these different stages. And they said, well, I kind of feel like it's not really linear. And I've said, yes, I totally agree with you. It's not just linear. And even in the book, he says there's many cycles within the larger cycles or many stages within the larger stages where you're still going through these mini enlightenments and then mini consolidation and integration. It's just, there's so many levels and layers to all of this. And I want to remind you to honor your intuition. Don't doubt yourself. I have had a lot of people come to me that are going through stages, like I just mentioned, and cycles, which is very feminine energy. And as we know, what's going to happen with the healing process on the planet and the soul evolution process on the planet moving forward is it's going to feel much more feminine than it did before. Masculine would be sitting and meditating for 10 hours a day. That's a masculine way to reach enlightenment. A feminine way to reach enlightenment is through cycles and ebbs and flows and times when you feel like you're just, you can't be beat, you're just going. And then all of a sudden you just feel like the wind knocked out of you. That's the feminine reminding you to rest. It's super interesting because in the book, the author talks about how it's kind of like stair steps to enlightenment or stair steps of ascension. The stair steps are, the part of a step, if you picture it in your mind, where you have the up the upward part of the step, and then you have the flat part. The upward part represents those quantum leaps you take. And then the static part, the part where you feel like you're probably resting, is just that flat part of the stair. So you need to hold space for you for that flat part of the stair. And I am holding space for you. There are, like I said, a lot of people reaching out to me who are kind of feeling like they're in a lull. And I feel like there is still a little bit of subconscious programming telling us we always have to be in a doing mode. When we commit to something, we have to do it 24/7. We always have to be in it. Living multidimensionally, to me, feels living more in a feminine energy, because you're shifting in and out of personalities and styles, and in and out of energies. And you have to be at peace with all of those transitions. I think that's actually one of the things that I would emphasize to anybody thinking about doing soul integration is, are you comfortable just being? Are you comfortable feeling different from one day to the next? Are you okay that you're not going to feel the same every single day? And just being and holding space for that feeling. So that is kind of how I'm going to wrap up this Ascension School message for today, is just by letting you know that there's always going to be these cycles, and letting you know that it's okay to feel the ups and downs. That's part of the energy of the new earth, is being in flow. Thank you so, so much for joining me. Again, a quick reminder to just hit that subscribe button. I feel like I'm a gaming YouTuber when I say that, but it probably makes you laugh. But I do feel like it's a way to do an energy exchange. If you liked what you heard, if you want to show gratitude, just subscribing is a great way to do it. Not to mention, I just want to remind you that subscribing to this channel will allow the algorithms of YouTube to lift this message so more people who are looking for it can hear it. That's one of my favorite things about the way the algorithms work. Some of us, we think, ooh, all of the AI and all of the things, and it's all being controlled. And I'm like, actually, I kind of think that it's a way of reflecting where people are at, where the collective is, and what they want. And so thank you so much again for co-creating here with me. As always, I'm sending you so much love and honoring the divine being that you are.